the first time I noticed something was off. It was just a flicker, a glint of light in the corner of my old bedroom, right where the wallpaper peeled behind the bookshelf. I'd come back to my childhood home for the first time in years, expecting nostalgia, maybe a little awkwardness, but not this strange crawling feeling at the back of my neck. The house was quieter than I remembered, the air thick with the scent of dust and lemon polish, and every step I took seemed to echo a little too loudly. I was supposed to be helping my mom pack up the last of her things. She was moving out, finally, after years of saying she would. The house had always felt too big for just the two of us after Dad left. But now with me grown and gone, it was practically a museum, full of memories but empty of life. I wandered from room to room, running my fingers along the banister, pausing at the faded family photos in the hallway. There was the one of me and my brother, grinning with gap-toothed smiles, and another of my parents on their wedding day, looking impossibly young and happy. I didn't expect to feel so out of place in the house where I'd grown up. Every corner held a story, but the stories felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. I tried to shake off the unease, blaming it on the stress of moving, the weight of old memories. But that flicker in my bedroom wouldn't leave me alone. It was late afternoon when I finally decided to investigate. The sun slanted through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. I moved the bookshelf aside, half expecting to find nothing but dust bunnies and forgotten toys. Instead, I found a small, circular hole in the wall, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. My heart thudded in my chest as I reached out, fingers trembling, and felt something cold and metallic just beneath the surface. I pulled out a tiny black device no bigger than a thumb drive. It had a single, unblinking lens. A camera. My breath caught. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was holding. Why would there be a camera hidden in my childhood bedroom? Who would put it there? My mind raced through possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. I turned the device over in my hands, searching for a clue, a brand name, a serial number, anything. There was nothing. Just smooth black plastic and that cold, glassy eye. I glanced around the room, suddenly hyper-aware of every shadow, every creak of the floorboards. Had someone been watching me? For how long and why? I slipped the camera into my pocket, heart pounding, and went downstairs to find my mom. She was in the kitchen, wrapping dishes in newspaper, her back to me. I hesitated in the doorway, unsure how to bring it up. How do you ask your own mother if she's been spying on you? "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you ever notice anything weird in my old room? Like electronics or wires or anything?" She looked up, frowning. "No, I don't think so. Why?" I shrugged, forcing a laugh. "Just curious. You know, old houses and all." She smiled, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Worry, maybe, or guilt. I couldn't tell. I decided not to push it, not yet. Instead, I helped her finish packing, all the while feeling the weight of the camera in my pocket, like a secret burning a hole through my jeans. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the creaky old mattress staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. Every sound felt amplified, the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I kept thinking about the camera, about who could have put it there, about what it might have seen. I thought about my dad. He'd left when I was 16 after months of arguments and slammed doors. We hadn't spoken much since. He'd started a new family in another state, sent the occasional birthday card, but otherwise he was a ghost. Could it have been him? The thought made my skin crawl. But why? What reason would he have to spy on his own daughter? The next morning I woke up early, the question still gnawing at me. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the camera in front of me. I turned it over and over, searching for answers. There was a tiny slot for a memory card. I dug through my bag for my laptop, hands shaking as I slid the card out and plugged it in. The files loaded slowly, one by one, dozens of short video clips, each labeled with a date and time. My heart hammered in my chest as I clicked on the first one. The screen filled with a grainy image of my bedroom, the angle just wide enough to capture the bed, the desk, the door. I watched, transfixed, as a younger version of myself walked into the room, dropped my backpack on the floor, and flopped onto the bed. The footage was silent, but I could almost hear the music I used to play, the laughter of my friends on the phone. I clicked through more clips, each one a snapshot of my life, doing homework, reading, talking on the phone, changing clothes. My stomach twisted. Someone had been watching me for years, recording my most private moments. I felt exposed, violated, angry, but the dates on the files stopped abruptly, about 2 years ago. The last clip showed me packing a suitcase, tears streaming down my face. I remembered that night, the night I left for college, the night everything changed. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling, and tried to steady my breathing. The realization that someone had been watching me for years was like a cold hand around my throat. I wanted to scream, to tear the house apart until I found every last secret it was hiding. But I forced myself to think, who would do this? Who even had access to my room for all those years? My mind kept circling back to my dad, but the idea felt too simple, too obvious. He'd left, yes, but he'd never seemed interested in what happened after. Or had he? I needed answers. I decided to call my brother, even though we hadn't spoken much since he moved out. He picked up on the third ring, his voice groggy. "Hey, what's up?" I hesitated, unsure how to start. "Did you ever notice anything weird in the house? Like electronics or cameras?" There was a pause. "Cameras? What are you talking about?" I swallowed. "I found a hidden camera in my old room. It was behind the bookshelf. It's been recording for years." He was silent for a long moment. That's messed up." "Are you sure?" "I have the footage. It's all there. I don't know who put it there, but—" I stopped, not wanting to say our dad's name out loud. My brother sighed. "Look, I don't know anything about that. But if you want, I can come by and help you look around. Maybe there's more." I agreed, relief flooding through me. At least I wasn't alone in this. He arrived an hour later, still in his pajamas, but with a determined look on his face. Together, we searched the house, every room, every closet, every nook and cranny. We found 2 more cameras, one in the hallway, tucked behind a vent, and another in the living room hidden inside an old clock. Both were the same make as the one in my room, both with memory cards full of footage. We sat at the kitchen table, the cameras lined up between us like evidence in a trial. My brother scrolled through the files, his face growing paler with each clip. "This is insane," he muttered. "Who would do this?" I shook my head. "I don't know. But whoever it was, they had access to the house. They knew our routines. They knew when we'd be alone." He looked at me, his eyes wide. "Do you think it was Mom?" The thought made my stomach lurch. "No, she wouldn't. She's not like that." He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. "Maybe we should ask her." We waited until she came home from running errands. She walked in, arms full of groceries, and stopped short when she saw us sitting at the table. The cameras laid out in front of us. Her face went white. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. I stood up, holding out the camera from my room. "Mom, do you know anything about this?" She stared at it, her hands shaking. For a moment, I thought she might faint. Then she sank into a chair, covering her mouth with her hand. Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted you to find out like this." My brother and I exchanged a glance. "Find out what?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She took a shaky breath. "It wasn't me, I swear. But I knew about the cameras. Your father, he put them in. After he left, I found one while cleaning. I confronted him, but he said it was for security. That he wanted to keep an eye on the house, on you two. I didn't believe him, but I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I thought if I took them out, he'd get angry. So I left them. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal crash over me. You let him watch us? For years? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know he was still watching. I thought maybe he'd forgotten, or that the cameras didn't work anymore. I'm sorry. I should have done something. I should have protected you. My brother slammed his fist on the table. This is messed up. We need to call him. We need answers. I nodded, my hands shaking. I pulled out my phone and dialed my dad's number, my heart pounding in my chest. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm and distant. Hello? It's me, I said, my voice cold. We found the cameras. There was a long pause. I see. Why? I demanded. Why did you do it? He sighed, the sound heavy with regret. I thought I was protecting you. After I left, I worried. I wanted to make sure you were safe. I know it was wrong. I'm sorry. His words rang hollow. I hung up, my hands numb. My brother stared at me, his jaw clenched. What now? He asked. I looked at the cameras, at my mother, at the house that suddenly felt like a stranger. We get rid of them. All of them, and then, I don't know. We move on, I guess. But as I gathered the cameras, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Something my dad wasn't telling us. Something hidden, just out of reach. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blinking red light of a hidden lens. Felt the invisible gaze that had followed me for years. I kept replaying my dad's words in my mind. How easily he'd said he was protecting us. How quickly he'd apologized. As if that could erase the years of watching, the invasion of trust. My mother's guilt haunted me too. I wanted to be angry, to shout, but mostly I just felt hollow. Like the house itself, familiar on the outside, but full of secrets I'd never noticed. The next morning, my brother and I boxed up the cameras and memory cards. We agreed to destroy them, but before we did, I made copies of the files. Something in me needed to know if there was more. If there was a pattern, a clue, anything that would explain why my dad had gone so far. My brother left for work, promising to check in later. My mom stayed quiet, moving through the house like a shadow, her eyes red and distant. I spent the day watching the footage, skipping through hours of mundane life, me doing homework, my brother playing video games, my mom folding laundry. But then, in one of the hallway clips, I noticed something strange. A figure, moving quickly, almost out of frame. It wasn't my dad or my mom or my brother. It was someone else, someone I didn't recognize at first. The person wore a dark hoodie, their face hidden, but their movements were oddly familiar. I paused the video, rewound, watched again. The figure slipped into my room, stayed for a few minutes, then left. The date on the clip was from 2 years ago, right before I left for college. My heart pounded as I realized I'd never noticed anyone coming or going that night. I checked the other cameras, searching for more footage of the stranger. In the living room feed, I caught a glimpse of the person's face as they passed by a mirror. My breath caught. It was my uncle, my dad's younger brother, who used to visit sometimes, always with a nervous smile and a quick excuse to leave. Why would my uncle be sneaking around the house at night? Why would he go into my room? I called my brother, told him what I'd found. He was silent for a long time. I never liked him, he said finally. He always gave me the creeps. I decided to confront my mom. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of cold tea. I showed her the footage, watched her face pale as she recognized her brother-in-law. I didn't know, she whispered. He said he was just dropping something off for your dad. I never thought... I pressed her. Did Dad know? Was he working with him? She shook her head, tears in her eyes. I don't know, maybe. They were always close. But after your dad left, your uncle started coming around more. I thought he was just helping out. The pieces started to fall into place. But the picture they formed was darker than I'd imagined. I called my dad again, this time with the footage ready. When he answered, I didn't waste time. Why was Uncle Mike in our house? Why was he in my room? There was a long silence. Then quietly, my dad said, I asked him to check on you. I was worried, but I couldn't come myself. I thought he'd just make sure you were okay. I didn't know he was going into your room at night. His voice broke, and for the first time I heard real fear in it. I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I hung up, my hands shaking. I felt sick, violated all over again. My uncle had been in my room, alone, at night. The cameras weren't just about protection. They were about control, about secrets, about trust broken in ways I couldn't even name. I called my brother, told him everything. We agreed to go to the police, to show them the footage, to finally put an end to the secrets that had haunted our family for years. It wasn't easy. There were questions, investigations, painful conversations. But in the end, the truth came out. My uncle was arrested, my dad faced consequences for what he'd done, and my mom finally started to heal. The house on Maple Street was never the same. We sold it a few months later, the memories too heavy to carry. But as I packed the last of my things, I felt lighter, freer, as if I'd finally stepped out of the shadows and into the light. I learned that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. But I also learned that secrets can't survive forever. Not when you're brave enough to face them. And as I closed the door on my childhood home for the last time, I knew I'd never let anyone watch me from the shadows again.